welcome to the Green Justice Podcast. This is the second of a two-part series featuring Alexandra Taylor and Alicia Gowan with the Office of Sustainability in Campus and Community Planning. Paula Hirschman, my co-host, and I, Mark Vardy, had a delightful conversation with Alexandra and Alicia, and we welcome you to join us for part two. Okay, so I want to loop back to a topic actually that was mentioned in passing, like maybe 20 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago, when you were talking about the Sustainability Hub being non-hierarchical, being decentralized, being open. And in passing, you mentioned this is part of a decolonized approach. So I want to ask you about social justice and indigenization and decolonization more broadly, not just in the Sustainability Hub, but more broadly. How do these important efforts to decolonize and indigenize and consider all forms of accessibility and so issues of social justice, how does that intersect with sustainability work?
Yeah, I can start. I got a really good answer. I have a long answer for this. It's just because it's been really top of mind for us. So yeah, I would say, we're by no means perfect, and this is a learning journey. But it's definitely been top of mind, at least for our office, and I think a lot of the members of the hub as well, to really embed equity and decolonization into sustainability and embed it in, as being integral to what we're doing. So especially shifting beyond this, 3-pillar approach, which was an approach taken 20 years back. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. I'm not going to get into it, but I think
the 3 pillars, let's see, off the top of my head, were economic sustainability, environmental sustainability,
and social
sustainability.
Yeah.
And so that's the outdated model.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And it's outdated in the sense that it's very siloed and forces kind of silos. And it's not recognizing the complexity of sustainability challenges, how interconnected they all are. And yes, sometimes you need to silo things in order to explain issues. But I think, that's an approach that's fairly outdated. And
so what's the approach that you guys take?
So we're trying to move past that, and we're really trying to be thoughtful about what we're doing. And so within KPU's definition of sustainability, which I'm not gonna say it, I'm not gonna belabor it right now because it is long, but we want to acknowledge that Earth and the environment are at the center because human society and our systems are wholly encompassed by and inherently dependent on the health of our environment, right? And that does sound very ecocentric, eco, not ego. And it's true, it is true, but that's because, no planet, no healthy planet, no us, right? So it's centering the environment as core, but it's trying to integrate and embed and apply concepts of intersectionality to this work principally and in practice. So, especially recognizing that existing issues of discrimination, racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression, those are all very similar to, the same kind of issues that have created sustainability challenges in the first place. So capitalism, white supremacy, all of these kind of similar issues they're all interconnected with each other. And so, they've created and exacerbated these same crises that we face today. And so, we really aim to recognize these and understand that these can create unique experiences for everybody. And so, in order to make a more equitable and just sustainable world, these solutions mustn't only redress existing inequities, but we want to also prop up marginalized groups and build solutions that are embedded with justice. And just practically too, this often ends up creating a lot of co-benefits in society. And from a university perspective, similar to in a municipality, if we're addressing these issues in a very systemic systems thinking, holistic approach, then we're able to be more effective and efficient too. So just like practically makes more sense. But in terms of like, I guess ways we've experienced that at KPU are like trying to, embed it practically. One example, which I know you'd seen probably yesterday during our Sustainability Hub meeting, is, we're really trying to bring decolonization, reconciliation, and equity inclusion at the forefront of our sustainability report as an example. That seems like very like a basic example, but we're really trying to do that to ground the work that we're doing in these kind of areas. And, we hope to moving forward that we're able to like do more explicit work that is really doing, the environmental aspects of it, but also the like justice equity aspects of it all together so that it's really integrated. Another way we've been doing this, for example, in the like KPU-wide definition of sustainability, we really, really pushed forward and wanted to include language about Indigenous peoples and communities as being the original stewards of the land. And that's something that we really wanted to emphasize. And especially, we're, at the intersection where reconciliation and education connect, and then also in a polytechnic setting where sustainability is one of our top 5 strategic goals. Like that just is so important to emphasize. And, yes, that's just a definition, and it doesn't mean we're necessarily going to be good at acting on that. But, it's a first step in the process, and we really want to make that, at the forefront as well. Yeah, I have other examples too, but I'm gonna just like back off now because I feel like I could go on forever. But just like
we could have a whole episode just on this one question.
I really
definitely.
I really do think that. And like there's been lots of other projects where we faced, decisions like equity considerations when we're thinking about solutions to problems. And, I'll just say, one example is, before I digress, is when you look at transportation, sustainable transportation, we recently found out that we're able to determine that our commuting emissions are almost 4 times the amount of our building emissions. And up until recently, we understood or assumed, mostly just because we weren't actually calculating our...
Can I just ask a quick question? So you say that transportation emissions, so you're talking about employees like staff, faculty, admin, commuting to work? Are you also including students?
Both, yeah.
Okay, so students and so everyone who's coming to KPU.
Everyone who's coming to KPU,
emit 4 times the amount of carbon dioxide equivalents than just the buildings on the 5 campuses.
Yeah. So historically, because we only had been calculating or measuring like a certain, I guess you could say, like sectors of them or like sources of emissions, we just always assumed building emissions were the highest. And so now because we launched a sustainability survey back earlier this year, we were able to actually understand and learn about people's travel patterns. And through that, we were able to actually calculate like more or less approximately the emissions from our commuting. And with that being said, that like, so, and just to put a number to it, if anybody's curious, that's about 8,000 tons of CO2 equivalent.
And can you speak to the difference between employees and students in those numbers? Because I think that's really interesting. Not to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so I feel like we're getting a little off the topic of the question, but I hope this is interesting.
It's interesting because we started out talking about, decolonization and indigenization.
Yeah.
We're talking about, the importance of recognizing Indigenous peoples as the first stewards of the land.
Yeah.
And then we get into this question of like how many tons of greenhouse gas emissions, we're releasing. And it just, I think to my mind, it just goes to the importance of like thinking about all of these various scales, like interconnected. Because the other thing I want to point out is that along the way, you also mentioned capitalism and white supremacy, right? And so it's like trying to think about how we are dealing with like this history and how it's manifesting in the present moment.
Yeah.
And
like
then,
really specific things, right? Like in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So It is all related.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
But
And
it's like it's a job of kind of like narrativizing like those
totally,
relations. Right? So,
totally. And I mean, I guess like, so a lot of, a lot of the reasons why our emissions are as high as they are, and where I guess where they're coming from is from private drive alone vehicles. And that may not be a surprise to many listeners. It's, we're a car dominated world, especially in Canada, especially in Metro Vancouver. And, we do actually have an amazing transportation system in Metro Vancouver. It actually has one of, I think, the highest ridership rates in North America for a transport system, which is amazing. And so we love to hear that. But it's, it just goes to show we should be harnessing that and communicating that out. Yeah.
I'm waving my compass card. I
We're
just told
transit users.
We're all
We
transit
love
users.
transit.
Yeah.
Yes. And so anyway, so to get to the point I'm trying to say, why I started talking about transportation and this concept of like equity is, so one of the like best ways we can actually get people to consider driving less and maybe taking transit more, or walking or cycling or rolling or skateboarding, whatever is your jam. Scooting. Yeah, exactly. Is actually to make it more difficult for people to park and drive. And what does that mean? That usually means an increase of pricing. And a lot of people don't like that, of course. And KPU actually has really, really, really cheap parking pricing, like market-based, like when you look at the market. But also one thing that's really interesting is that, students are actually paying more than employees at KPU for parking pricing. And that's a huge equity consideration, right?
Quite a bit.
Quite a lot. And yeah, it's something to consider when we're making solutions to these challenges. Like that was a huge thing that we kind of came to face, and we're like, oh my goodness, like this is an equity issue. And so that, that just shows like how all of these things are interrelating. And, students are often, they're stressed out enough just to be studying. And, I'm sure half the students have to also work jobs to pay their tuition fees or just pay the bills to keep a roof over their head. And so it's a really important thing to think about, where equity is tying into all of this. And when we're actually putting out solutions to some of these challenges, how can we do it in a way that is actually fair and just and going to be effective too, right? And yeah, and actually a lot of students at KPU actually do take transport. It's like 70 something percent. I can't remember the exact percent, which is amazing, public transport. And so yeah, so a lot of our emissions are actually coming from employees who are using private vehicles. And yeah, and it's not
Greg.
Boo. No, and it's not to make people feel guilty about it, because guilt.
Except Greg.
Yeah, except Greg.
We can guilt our absent co-host Greg.
Fair.
Yeah.
Boo.
I thought he was too good for us.
Yeah. He's probably out for a ride right now.
Probably. Yeah.
He's driving around. It's a single occupancy vehicle.
Exactly. But it's I think it's like going to, for me at least, actually Alexandra and I talk about this all the time. It's like going to this concept of wheel of privilege. At least it's how I think both her and I
love the wheel.
We love the wheel of privilege. And it's like, it's a way of kind of looking at your own privilege and saying, okay, whoever's listening, you should look it up. I think it's a really good way.
Google.
Yeah, Google it. Yeah. I think it's a really good way of just kind of self-reflecting on like what privileges we have and how that can shape our ability to affect change. Obviously, everybody has different capacities, and that's also reflected in, a wheel of privilege. But I personally try to take the approach that, if you have more privilege and more capacity to affect change and to, do these actions in your day-to-day life, or be a leader at the leadership table, or, spend time advocating for change. If you have privilege, you should be using that privilege to make that change. And especially speaking up for people who maybe can't because they don't have that privilege. And so, yeah, we love the wheel of privilege.
Alexandra, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, wow, the big question. I have, I guess you could say, the privilege of coming from a lot of the work that we're doing from this place of how accessible is the work that we do. I am so lucky that I'm on the KPU Accessibility Committee, and I've always been just very passionate about accessibility and of education, and since being a student with a learning disability, I've worked through accessibility services, and it's something that I think that I'm so thankful that my role, having the sort of nondescript title of project support, I've been able to sort of say, I'm passionate about this. How can I make sure that accessibility is something that we are kind of putting at the forefront of all the work that we are doing? So whether it's student outreach, recognizing that a student might not necessarily have the time, the capacity, English might not be their first language. So how can we communicate with students and meet them where they are to better understand what they need? And then also just understanding that so many students are dealing with, and this is kind of what I mentioned a little bit earlier, they're dealing with so much in their personal life. How can we look at the wheel of privilege and not a sort of overweigh a student with all the problems that make it feel like, this is their responsibility to take on, and kind of have this sort of prescriptive directive of do this, not that, do this, not that, and sort of more just invite and be a bit more uplifting about the possibilities. And I think that's what's really great about this sustainability club that I mentioned earlier, is they really are coming from a place of positive change rather than sort of this prescriptive directive change. So yeah, so my work, having it work with the accessibility committee, has been fabulous to not only share what we are doing in sustainability, but also to make sure that when we have a document that goes out, I really try and take a plain language approach to it to understand who is the audience of this document. Of course, we have reports that go out that have to get approved by the exec, and it's the very traditional bureaucracy thing where you need to have that academic language. But when we're talking to students, do we need to have that academic language? Do we need to make students not feel included? I don't think that really gets us anywhere. And yeah, sorry, Alicia, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I was just thinking.
We're all about interruption on this podcast.
Yes.
Right, Paula?
Mostly Greg, but yeah.
Fair. No, I just wanted to say, like, it's so interesting, and Alexandra has been such a huge asset, if you will, like, just because I think accessibility is often not, it's not like put in a spot as high as like justice and equity. Yet that's also a part of justice and equity. But I feel like this concept of accessibility isn't always considered in sustainability as clearly as some other like terms are. And for me, it's really opened my eyes working in, with Alexandra, who has such a passion for accessibility, because there's, when you really reflect on, if we're trying to say, encourage people to change their behaviors, sustainability is all about change management. And if we're trying to encourage people to change their behaviors, and we're, it's great to create services and put things out there, but if we're not doing it in a way that we understand the barriers people are facing and why they may not be using even existing systems in the first place, then we're missing the point here. Like, we're not understanding where change needs to be made. And yeah, access can look like so many different things. It's not necessarily just like your physical abilities. And there's so many considerations, like, non-visible disabilities, for example, too, that like we need to consider, like, people's mental health too, and how that can affect people's ability and capacity, going back to the wheel of privilege, to be able to be a part of this change. So yeah, I just want to highlight and emphasize that I think it's been really interesting, at least for me personally, to be like just have my eyes open up so much to how important accessibility actually is when we're talking about creating sustainability solutions.
And I think talking about making any changes on campus, it needs to start with, in my mind, of course, it needs to start with accessibility and bringing people to the table. I had the privilege of going to a accessibility professionals conference last year, and the big slogan that they used over and over again is "Nothing about us without us," which I think of all the time. Especially our work with campus planning, we're making huge changes to our campus, and who are we to make changes to the campus without having people at the table that use the campus and recognizing not everyone can use the campus the same way. So yeah, it's been a great opportunity to kind of come from the student perspective and now as an employee for KPU and just trying to constantly advocate for people that unfortunately don't have a seat at the table. And of course, I always go back to all the resources that KPU has to offer. And yeah, the accessibility services is definitely one that I think does some really great work at KPU.
As you were talking, I pulled up the wheel of privilege that I happen to have on my computer. This is another little plug, but we have a great departmental committee in the criminology department who work on indigenization and decolonization of criminology. And they sponsored a workshop a couple weeks ago where this wheel of privilege was centered. And so just so listeners know, if you kind of go around the outside, and there's different iterations, there's many different ways that this looks, but like around the outside of this wheel, there's things like citizenship, skin color, gender, sex, sexuality, persons with disabilities, neurodiversity, mental health, language, formal education, housing, wealth, Indigenous peoples, and citizenship, if I may have started there. But anyways, and then as you get closer to the center, you have categories where I find myself most often, like white, cisgender, male, heterosexual, without disabilities, fluent in English being one of the official languages. And then as you get further out towards the outside of that wheel, you start seeing people who are homeless, poor, temporary residents, and then all of the other multiple intersecting ways that people can be disadvantaged, I guess. And yeah, so I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention and kind of putting it right in the middle of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's always been a nice reminder for us, I think, and we bring it up a lot in department meetings that we have.
Yeah.
Even recognizing like we're a small department of 6 people, but we're all different. We're all different people with different challenges, different socioeconomic status, and I think it's a nice reminder to kind of step back and recognize where we are and where some of our students may be.
Understanding positionality, super important. Also, so what brings you personally then to this work? Why do you do it?
Go ahead.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just doing that so I can interrupt you later.
Well, I feel like I've already I spoke a bit about how as a student at KPU. So yeah, I was actually thinking before coming here, I was like, oh, when did I start at KPU? It was 2014. So yeah, I did a diploma at KPU, took some time off, decided to come back and do my degree. And I had
What did you do your degree in?
So Bachelor of Arts with a major in poli-sci.
Nice.
My diploma was actually in fashion marketing. So
That's a great combo. Fashion marketing and poli-sci.
Yeah,
Very
definitely. It was funny because when I was doing my fashion marketing diploma, the Wilson School was actually being constructed. So I had the privilege of watching it be built, this gorgeous building, and after graduating, actually walking through it and being like,
LEED
"So-
gold standards.
It's
Yes.
pretty nice space.
It is beautiful.
And also Rick Hansen gold.
And Rick Hansen gold, you're right. It's just a gold building. It is actually kind of golden color too.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So got my degree, and sort of during my last 2 years at KPU, as you can tell, it's like, it took you a while to graduate. Yes, it took me a really long time to graduate. And part of that was working through, obviously, a lot of mental health and working through a lot of challenges I was having with what my own learning style was. And so kind of while working through that, I just felt so lucky that I was able to connect with a few instructors, and I was hired on as a research assistant or a student assistant to work on a few open education resources. And I'm really, really passionate about these open education resources. They are, if you go to the BC Campus website, they're essentially textbooks in some cases that are completely free, which is, crazy. It's awesome considering how expensive textbooks are, but it was great to be able to work on a few of these. And I also was introduced to the Sustainable Development Goals through a project that was, I guess, 2-ish years now, or in
About 2 years ago, yeah.
2022, which is the Sustainable Development Goals Mapping Project. So after KPU signed the SDG Accord, this project began to really understand where KPU stood in terms of these 17 SDGs, where there are opportunities for more integration with the SDGs, how many classes are teaching with the SDGs. And so as a student assistant, I was able to do a little bit of like an environmental scan. And then through that, I had the privilege of meeting Shani Joseph, who is the director of sustainability at KPU, and get involved in working in this department. And then I graduated. But yeah, I guess I don't want to just talk about myself, but I guess through all this work, I've been really thankful to kind of bring in this lens of accessibility, especially through creating these open education resources. It's so powerful to have textbooks that are not only free, but textbooks that are online and can be easily text to speech. There was a huge challenge being a student requesting textbooks online when they were only in hardcover. I'm aging myself a bit, but but there was a day before when textbooks you had to literally go to the bookstore to purchase, and I really struggled. I really struggled through that. So anyway, just I guess a plug for the open education resources that KPU really has piloted that program across Canada. And so that's kind of how I came into this work. I think Alicia's story is pretty interesting.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. No, so for me, I grew up just playing a lot in the outdoors and love the outdoors, kind of like a classic story, I feel, especially for people living in BC. I mean, I'm not actually from BC, but I moved here. I don't know why I said that. But currently living in BC, I'm from Nova Scotia, and I grew up by the ocean and yeah, always just like grew up outdoors and camping. And so always loved nature and playing outside. And then when I was in high school, I was like, oh, I like chemistry. And then I was like, the science behind pollution is really interesting. So I kind of had like this epiphany and I was like, I'm going to go and do environmental chemistry. And like, yeah, I just really wanted to like learn about how, like, what's the science behind climate change and how is that impacting, our soil, our water, our air. And so that's kind of like where my knowledge base started growing. And then throughout my undergrad, I was really involved with the university's outdoors club there and yeah, bringing like leading outdoor trips and bringing people outside and talking about environmental stewardship and, like leave no trace principles. And so, yeah, so like I guess like the outdoor recreation education space was kind of like where I started really gaining more and more interest in this space and yeah, and wanting to spend more time in nature and work to steward it. And yeah, it's been a huge part of my inspiration and because I feel really connected to nature. And yeah, and I don't really it's a long story, I guess, how I ended up getting here, but I ended up also realizing like people person. I was like, oh goodness, I'm not a lab person. Like I'm really extroverted. And I was like, I should probably use these people skills.
I think that's a significant realization
Oh yeah.
for people to make, I think.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I took a course on ecological economics too in my undergrad. And that was like, it was like mind blowing for me because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm learning more about like capitalism and like how that's all connected to these issues. And it was just like, I felt like that was the first time for me where that was like, it was really like verbalized. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like I really want to dive into these like the root problems and like go at this at like a critical thinking perspective. And so I ended up doing a master's in environmental studies and sustainability science because I really wanted that like broader holistic perspective. And it really was like a critical social science kind of program. Like I studied with people who were like in Extinction Rebellion. Like it was like really it was a lot of like taking this critical approach. But I think it was a really important experience because it allows me to understand problems and problem solve in a really important way where you're thinking about, okay, like what are we missing? And like, are we taking everything in consideration? Are we taking everyone in consideration? And so that's like really shaped, I think, my understanding about this work. And to wrap this up, I was in the nonprofit sector a lot, volunteering for a while, still volunteering in the nonprofit sector. And that's kind of where my workspace started. And then I eventually came to KPU. But yeah, personally, I feel like it's a calling for me. Climate change is the greatest issue of our time. People may debate that, but I just personally, I'm like, no, it's a fact. And, we need everybody thinking and caring about these issues. And so I feel like it's just, yeah, it's a calling. I feel like I'm meant to do this work and it's not for everybody. It takes, a huge toll on your mental health and it can be really tiring and challenging. But I think because I have the capacity to do it and I have the willpower and passion for it, I just feel like I can't see myself in any other space. Like if climate change wasn't a problem, I'm like, I don't know what I would have done, But no, I really care and feel really connected to working on these challenges and especially because of my love of Mother Nature.
And I feel as being Alicia's coworker and desk mate, our desks are beside each other. It is so beautiful working with someone who is so passionate. Like the energy Alicia gives off, and it's amazing.
Ditto.
I absolutely love her, and I'm so thankful to be working next to her.
Well, I mean, I've seen the both of you around campus a lot because, whether it's like the Wild Spaces walks, or organized by Lee Bevington, or the various kinds of ways in which people get involved. I've seen, the both of you out, and I know that you're both incredibly passionate and committed to this work. And KPU, I think, is it's a good thing for everybody at KPU that you are doing the jobs that you're doing and that we have you here. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Well, that remains debatable. I don't know. It's like,
Greg on the other hand.
Okay, so I want to ask two questions in one, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I feel like we can kind of start looking towards the end of this podcast now. And so we've covered a huge amount of ground. So one of the questions is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important? And then the other question of this double-barreled question is, where do you want to see KPU in 5 years?
Ooh, okay, I'll go. In 5 years, I really hope that we see sustainability embedded across all 5 campuses, and I really truly mean 5 campuses. I think we have a huge challenge as a university that has 5 campuses. It makes the just like division of resources really challenging, and just efforts, and so I think being able to see services and see sustainability like with our eyes for those who can see, and yeah, just actually be able to feel it too, that it's like everywhere. And also, it'd be so great to see sustainability starting to become a part of people's work plans, and part of people's like actually like they have to do certain tasks to address this top 5 strategic priority of the university, because technically it is all of our responsibility at KPU to embed sustainability into our work, technically speaking. And so I think it would be so great to actually see that explicitly a part of people's work plans, especially so that people aren't just doing this work on top of all the other work they're doing on the side of their desks just because they are so passionate, right? Like it would be so great to see that it's really a part of what they're expected to do.
Yeah, and like some accountability.
Yeah, for sure. And also like just embedded in the curriculum. I know the Climate Plus Challenge is doing a lot of really cool work trying to get climate plus issues, so climate change issues plus the justice aspects of it into curriculum, and sustainability is all a part of that. So, it'd only be super beneficial. Also, just, more staffing, I think would be amazing. I would love to see that personally, just to see more capacity so that we can do more cool things. I feel like we have so many ideas, and, we're starting to get the point, especially these past 2 years, really understanding the baseline of like what sustainability is at KPU. And now I think it's kind of like, okay, we're almost like, we know the problems, like we know the challenges. We're starting to understand like where we're at. And then now it's kind of like, okay, how do we get to where we want to be? And then I think too, having just like more communication tools. Like we spoke a lot
Yeah.
yesterday, I know in the hub meeting, just like about enhancing communication. And that's such it's a challenge, and it's something that I think really needs a lot more work at KPU. We do have an Instagram. We want to make that more active. We're working on building a sustainable KPU website, and that's meant to, show and be representative of sustainability at the entire institution. And then, and also, like, I think it'd be so cool if we could have like a sustainability newsletter. I know a lot of sustainability groups at universities have sustainability newsletters. So, trying to connect people with the communities that we have, and then like also just like learning tidbits or like fun facts or habits like that you can embed to like, yeah, give people those tools that they need. And then, yeah, just like continuing accountability processes, and ensuring that we are really like being super specific about how we're understanding our impact too. Yeah. And then I guess kind of similar to that point, in terms of like anything else to share, keep you, as I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, we've been working on our inaugural sustainability report this past year. And it's just about being sent to marketing soon for design, which means in a few months it'll be out for everybody. And it's focused on the academic year of 2023, 2024. And I know reading a report isn't everybody's like, most exciting thing to do. But I think it's a great resource. It will be a great resource for KPU, for the community, but also, for people who are prospective students who are interested in sustainability at KPU, right? And actually sharing that information out. And plus, I mean, for other people who work at universities who are in similar positions as us, like I personally, for fun and also part of my job, read sustainability reports at other universities.
So fun.
So fun.
You're a fun gal.
But yeah, no, I think it's just really important, especially to like just bring about a diversity of different kind of like information tools and communication tools similar to like this report, for people to start learning about, what's really going on, and then also like ways for people to share the really exciting and awesome things that they're doing, because we want people to be excited about the cool, impactful work they're doing too, right?
Yeah, and like just this is kind of connected to the 5-year thing. Like we like reports. We come out with a lot of reports. how can we make these reports a little bit more interesting, a little bit more accessible? I think it's like the info is there, and I think there's a lot that we can do to use that information. And you know, like a ton of time goes into writing and editing and proofing and marketing for these reports. And I just think it would be great, in 5 years' time, if we have a report that turns into a video,
Or like a dashboard.
professionally voiced, a dynamic PDF, a cool newsletter. Somehow we can,
Or like integrated in our website in like
Yeah.
a fun way.
or like something we could do to get it like physically on campus, for students to be able to walk by and actually experience, rather than having to like hunt through our website to find it, or just fingers crossed it gets promoted through the student newsletter or something like that. So I just think that there's a lot of different ways that we can deliver information. And I hope 5 years
Yeah.
from now that we're kind of utilizing different methods and able to communicate the same thing.
And Alexandra, if people have really cool ideas about sustainability, or if they're facing barriers for sustainability, have concerns, or simply just have an idea that they think KPU would benefit from in relation to sustainability, where can they contact us?
The third plug. Actually, I think
I feel like this has been like the
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So that
It's
would
like-
be sustainability@kpu.ca.
Sustainability at kpu.ca.
I know it's just emailing to sort of that like open abyss email. I don't know who this is going to. It's going to me.
Yeah, I sometimes check it.
Oh,
but
right. You have access to it as well.
Yeah,
But don't
very good.
worry. Like it's
It's a real person.
It's a real
it's
person.
not a bot.
We're not AIing the Outlook yet. Yeah, and sorry, I just don't want to forget to do probably my millionth plug. Sustainable Development Goals month. So this March will be the third year that KPU has celebrated the Sustainable Development Goals in an event form. And this year it's been great because SDG Canada has decided squishing a ton of events and celebrations into 5 days.
Talk about
a week.
17 goals.
To talk about 17 goals, it's not sustainable. So I really appreciate that now we've been gifted this SDG month. So March 2025 will be SDG month at KPU. And if your department, are you a faculty member, are you a student, are you
alumni,
are you doing something in sustainability that you would like amplified?
or even a community member. too.
Yes. If you would like something amplified under the SDGs, we would absolutely love to support you in that. Or if you are interested in sustainability and want to get involved in terms of supporting an event, helping plan event, do you have a cool idea? We have a little budget, which I'm pretty pumped about. So also email sustainability@kpu.ca. And yeah, I'm really excited for SDG month this year. The fact that we have a whole month. I'm hoping to touch every campus. Not physically touch it. Well, I guess technically physically touch every campus, but I mean like have a presence on every campus. It's so challenging having 5 campuses.
Yeah.
And we talk about capacity all the time, and it's like capacity just like disappears when you're trying to do something on every campus. So
but
we're hoping to have something that lives on campus for the month. It doesn't need to be babysat necessarily. It's going to allow students to interact with it on their own time, opportunities to get more information. The SDGs, if you haven't looked them up, and you have a design background, they are a gorgeous example of really good branding. So I'm excited to sort of utilize some of the open sourced images that are available and create some really exciting just standalone interactive displays on each campus. that are going to be able to highlight things that are happening on campus during the month. And yeah, so please reach out if you're interested.
And attend. Be a part of it.
Yeah,
Join.
of course.
Right. Well, yeah. Cool.
We better see you two there.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Maybe not Greg, but
Maybe not
definitely
Greg,
us.
yeah.
Yes,
He'll
yeah.
probably just be too busy driving around
You're
his
right.
gas-powered single occupancy vehicle, drinking coffee from disposable cups,
Oh,
Yeah.
throwing them out the window.
Yeah.
Right into,
Gross.
yeah,
We don't
Yelling
like
at a
Greg.
bus.
yelling at buses.
And a cyclist.
Oh, we laugh, but it's
Mm.
true.
Yeah.
No, what are your thoughts, Paula? Is there anything that we were going to talk about that we haven't talked about?
This is terrible. Putting me on the spot like this.
I know.
I understand.
No, I'm very encouraged by all of this, hearing about this, having more resources to share to students or getting them more engaged with what's already being done, particularly that sustainability club too.
Mhm.
That's something I'm going to circulate
It's
very
amazing.
widely.
It's amazing. And they're so passionate and like such cool people.
Mhm.
I will give you their email address and hope maybe you could put it on like the show notes or something like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
Great.
fabulous.
How about you?
How about me?
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, no, I think we covered lots of ground here. This has been a really good conversation.
This has been
Um,
so fun. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you
really
so much
happy.
for having
Thank you.
us.
Yeah,
us.
it's been
You're
awesome. It's
welcome.
super nice to chat.
Yeah, thanks for making it happen.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for making it happen. I've never been to this room before, and it's
I
really
love the
cool.
podcast studio.
I
Yeah,
know.
shout out to the podcast studio on Civic Plaza.
Yeah,
It's
we love
pretty
Civic
nice.
Plaza.
Awesome.
Civic Plaza has more to offer than I thought.
Right?
Yeah. And also, if you are on Civic Plaza
Mm.
and somehow you make it to the 9th floor,
Oh, yeah.
which I think you need a key card to get to, but that's where campus community planning offices are.
Yeah,
And yeah,
that's where we're at. Yeah,
it's
hopefully,
our home.
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to be more easily accessible in the future for people
It's
to
true.
just pop by.
Yeah. Well, they can always email.
This
Yeah,
is
email
true.
beforehand. Oh, and on this, I'm so sorry. I have
Another
one more
plug.
plug. On the 6th floor, we have a
Oh,
clothing
yeah.
donation bin. So this is in preparation for Sustainable Development Goals Month in March. It's this clothing donation bin. We are accepting lightly used clothing of all genders and ages. We will be hosting and supporting the Sustainability Club in doing a student-only free store during SDG month. We already have like 5 or 6 really big tall boxes
Mhm.
full
Amazing.
right now, but we could always use more. So that's going to be it. That's on the 6th floor. Gurpreet is hosting that desk. So
Mhm.
go say hi to Gurpreet and yeah, drop off your items.
Mhm.
If you're not able to for somehow make it, feel free and email us at sustainability@kpu.ca.
Just in
It's-
case you missed
You're
it.
never going to forget it.
You're going to end up with like a bazillion
So many
emails. yeah.
emails. So many
So many
emails.
That's okay. I have the capacity. Okay, that's it. Plug done.
All right. So, great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.